Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of this episode is Utopia if Utopia, Why It's So Hard to Create a Perfect World. And so, John, we're going to be talking about Utopia, paradise on Earth. Paradise on Earth.
Excellent.
But before we do, you just got back from touring.
Yes, I've been on tour for the past 3.5 weeks. I started off in Chicago and then went up to Columbus, Ohio, and then to Zurich, Switzerland, and then to Norway, Oslo, Norway, and then back to Chicago, then Atlanta, and now here in LA.
The grand tour, the old grand tour that they used.
The old dog leg. It was great. It was so fun. Sold out. I was touring with Susan Messing, who is just an unbelievable improviser who's been on our show.
Right?
Yeah, and we had got a standing ovation in Oslo.
Who gave you the standing? Oslo gave you the standing.
They jumped from their seat.
How was Zurich? You've never been to Zurich?
Fantastic. Never been there. The weather was great. And the theater they had us in used to be a porn theater. So they've redone it. It's not a porn theater anymore, but they've kept like a lot of the porn posters on the wall, and they have this really cool bar. It's really awesome. And in the bathroom, they still have those, metal coin operated boxes to get like a French tickler or,
little souvenir. Did you bring one back?
I don't know if they worked or not, but it was such a cool place and so perfect for us because, it's all about freedom of speech, and it was great. Right. It was great. They're all worried about us, though. They're everywhere we went. Everybody was just like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah. Was there a fear that you would be suddenly abducted off the street and sent to a prison somewhere, or deported?
I mean, they buy into some of the extreme stuff that they're hearing on the internet. But more than that, it's really just that, they've dealt with, whatever you want to call it, strong men or fascism or whatever, far right governing. And they know it. They know it. Right. And they know it when they see it. So that was sort of terrifying, but at the same way, sort of comforting in a weird way. I don't know. It was weird talking about politics with them. It just, it was just a different vibe. So, but it was really great. The whole trip was really great, and I'm tired but happy.
Cool. Well, it's good to be back. I'm a little rusty, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm a little rusty right now.
Yeah. Listen, your rust is A+ for anyone else.
I was going to say, I read recently where Norway is offering asylum to United States academics.
Really? Is that true?
That is. God.
Yeah.
So we may.
Yeah, they're all, but they've got their version of it. Germany, they don't call themselves the Nazi Party, but they are as close as you can get in the 20%, I think, or somewhere up there. And I know that Austria too, similar issue. So everybody, and of course the Brexit and then the aftermath in the UK, just a lot of craziness going on in the world.
Right, and that's what I wanted to talk to about too. A lot of economic craziness, political craziness, and social craziness.
Crazy. Like a few of my first early girlfriends.
And that got me thinking that wouldn't it be nice if I could just get away from all this stress and create my own perfect world?
Well, that's possible. It's called heroin.
It's that easy.
Yeah, it's called a Delano drip. It's available to you. We're probably on one now, and this is all a simulation. I mean, let's be honest. As I'm referencing our episode, yeah. So maybe you already are. Maybe this is heaven.
No, what am I complaining about?
Yeah.
Maybe I should shut up. I should shut up. I was going to ask you, if you were going to create a perfect world, a utopia of your own making, what would be in there, John? What types of things would you include, do you think?
God, I don't know. I mean, I whenever I think of Utopia, I think I kind of get left with like it boring. You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, it's so funny because everybody, LA where I live is dumped on by everybody. You go anywhere and they're like, oh my God, what a terrible place. But it's of course not. It's a gigantic place, as you know. It's an amazing city. And yes, there are pockets that get all the press, but there's also, believe it or not, really extensive good sides to it. But the thing I love about LA is that it's just a vomit of a city, that it's pure chaos. You know what I mean? And I just love that. I love that. And I don't know if we're in a utopian society. Isn't it just going to be, we're all wearing the same thing and it's going to be boring? That's what I'm worried about.
Would you be a strong man in your commune? Do you think your picture
No.
everywhere we looked around, we'd see that headshot of you?
No. I'm a follower. I don't want any trouble.
I think mine would be it definitely center around barbecue and possibly sex.
Well, yes, but we've got that now. By the way, Atlanta barbecue, really good.
Was it good?
Yeah.
But the reason I bring this up, I don't think people realize how hard it is to create a perfect world.
Yeah.
And that's because, as we've mentioned before, cultures and societies are systems.
Yes.
And as soon as you start fiddling around with one part of that system, something goes wrong in the other part.
Boy, we're learning that with the government right now. There's a whole lot of tweaking going on, and it ain't working out so good.
I know. It's like tweak this over here, and then run over and try to tweak this, and then, oh my God, I shouldn't have tweaked that. I shouldn't have tweaked that to begin with.
Yep.
But it creates it. You see how it creates other problems, like things that you'd never even imagine.
Right.
And pretty soon your perfect society doesn't look anything like the perfect society that you originally set out to create.
Yes. Yeah.
And people get really unhappy. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. They're unhappy with that new society, just like they were unhappy with the old society.
Yeah.
And
because a utopian society sort of says to me like it's the end game, right? There's nowhere to go from there. And that's depressing, I think.
Yeah, it really is. Like, where do you go after you've created your supposed utopia? You know what I mean?
What do you do now? You just sit around.
Wait to die. We could have done that with the old one. Less work, I guess it would have been. But one thing, I think the more I thought about it, one thing, I think it's because people like to complain. They really do like to complain.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. And I would say anybody that's ever had to lead a project at work, anybody that's ever directed a theater show, or tried to organize a trip for a large group of people, or even like a family reunion, those are awful.
Awful.
And I would say even, to disagree with Aristotle, I don't think humans are the rational animal. I think they're more the complaining animal.
Yes.
Yes,
it is. Well, and now we've built the ultimate playground for that. It's called the internet, and it's going to destroy us.
Yeah.
We all get to say whatever we want, but it's going to be the thing that just kills us all.
I know. It's complaining writ large. It's like no longer just whispering it to somebody. Yeah. It's like you're saying it to millions of people.
Say whatever you want, whenever you want.
And I think it's, it's easier, to complain than it is to actually fix anything.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And, it's because if you're complaining, all you have to do, like at work, you just sit back and be like, somebody comes up with a new idea. You're just like, I wouldn't do that if I was you.
Yep. Yep.
And then they'll be like, well, what would you do? It's like, I don't know, but I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And
part of our political scene.
Right. I don't know how to fix it, but I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that with it. And it makes you seem like you have some advocacy, or some agency, and that you're contributing to the project when you do that.
Right.
But you're really not.
No.
You're really not doing it.
Yeah. You're not being helpful.
And I know some people like to say, well, I'm being the devil's advocate.
Yeah. No, you know what? Don't be. Don't be.
The devil doesn't need advocates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why they say that the devil's in the details. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And the other thing I was thinking about, and this comes up quite frequently, is like when when you're trying to pick a restaurant with people, and somebody will always say, I don't care. I like everything. I don't care where we go.
Yes.
And then you go, so you have to pick some place, and then you go there and they hate it, and they won't shut up about how much they hate it.
Yeah. That's right. I hate that.
I know. It drives me crazy. I'm just like, if you're the type of person that really doesn't like everything and doesn't not care where you go eat, don't say that you are. Don't say that you are.
Yeah.
You pick the place, because I really am a person that doesn't care where I go eat.
But you always have to pick the place.
I know.
You're good at picking restaurants, I think. You've taken me to some nice restaurants.
Yeah, but you're the type of person that doesn't really care.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
You're a follower, remember?
It's true. Care. I'll eat anything. Just tell me what to do. I'm exhausted. I could
just open the door to the guest room and throw in a sandwich or something. You'd be happy.
That is true. You made my son and I a sweet meal when we came out there. What was that, last fall?
Last spring? Maybe. When was it?
Yeah, I think it was in the fall because, we were taking Jules to college.
That's right. I made you breakfast burritos for the way out, too.
And fajitas. God damn, that was good.
So you guys are like an easy crowd.
That's what we were talking about. And then you send us off with some cookies, too. My son and I couldn't stop talking about those cookies.
That's a state cookie of New Mexico, the biscochito. So today, John, we're going to look at Utopia, a perfect world.
Right.
And we're going to discuss the history of the idea of Utopia, and then we're going to look at some of the attempts people have made to try to create a utopia here on Earth.
Fantastic. Cannot wait.
And as we've said, some of these utopias were successful to a certain degree, but a lot of them failed.
Yeah.
And I would say the reason they failed was because of people.
Yeah. People can't, you want a perfect world. The problem is it's filled up with imperfect people.
Right.
So there you go.
That's a good way to look at it. The external, the container may be perfect, but it's what's inside the container.
Yeah. It's the lightning bugs.
And I just want to say before we begin, John, if you have any ideas or complaints, which I'm sure you will,
I already have a few.
try to present them in a constructive way, a positive constructive way, which I know you won't.
Using iMessages and whatnot. I know. When you do this, I feel I don't know what to do.
What are you doing? Are you messaging? You're sending me a text right now.
No,
it looks like,
I'm checking my phone. My phone. This is some inside baseball for our listeners.
Yeah,
the new iPhone update will turn if your iPhone is near your computer, it will turn itself into a microphone. And we've had, as you and I know, we recorded an entire episode,
where
my microphone. I thought I was recording into the fancy microphone, but I wasn't. I was recording into this one.
That was the whole episode. I would hear you talking and then like
terrible.
And you kept saying, "There's nothing. I don't hear it on my end.
I know.
I don't hear it on my end."
It was terrible. Terrible. Anyway, I'm making sure that it's off. That's all I'm doing.
Okay.
Here. Okay.
Good. Everybody, just be aware of that.
Yeah. If you guys hear any... All right. Good. I'm good.
Okay.
Good. All right.
So let's begin. In his book, Searching for Utopia, The History of an Idea, Gregory, and by the way, this guy has written 2 books. He's written one about Utopia and one about Dystopia. And we're going to discuss them.
He covered it all. He covered it all. After that, what do you do? Medium-topia? No. There's nothing left.
All right. So in his book, Searching for Utopia, The History of an Idea, Gregory Claeys says that the concept of utopia in every age is some variation on an ideal present, an ideal past, and an ideal future, and the relation between the three. Each of these may be mythical or imaginary, or have some actual foundation in history.
Okay. And
remember, when we did our episode on personal nostalgia, we talked about how people often long for a forgotten past or a lost past.
Yes.
That was perfect and carefree, usually going back to when they were teenagers.
Yes. And they forget how horrible it really was.
Right. Right. But that back at that time, it was like you didn't have to pay rent. You weren't responsible for anybody. Your parents took care of you.
Of course, it was nice. You were just in jean shorts all summer.
And maybe that's how for our Utopia. That's the new uniform that we'll have.
That would be good. And bottle rocket fights. God, bottle rocket fights are so fun.
They really are.
Until somebody breaks out a Roman candle. That's how they always end. Somebody breaks out a Roman candle.
So anyway, the idea of Utopia Utopia is not just a personal nostalgia. It's a nostalgia for everybody.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So instead of like your dad or your granddad talking about how great it was when they played football in high school or when they were in the army, they're trying to imagine a non-existent golden age for everybody.
Right. Which, therein is the problem.
Right. And Claeys says, for the ancient Greeks, their ancient ideal was the Egyptians. And then their idealized present was themselves, which is a little, that's a little narcissistic, I think. But and their idealized future was the image of the Elysian fields described in Homer's Odyssey, which was in the afterlife.
Oh,
isn't that nice?
It is nice.
What's funny is that I think Dodger Stadium is located in
Elysian Park. I was going to say that. It's a tough neighbor. I would not call it Utopia over there. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. There's a lot of cool houses and everything, but you know,
it's. I don't think it's what the Greeks were imagining.
Yeah. You cut the wrong person off. He's going to put a bullet in your head.
What do you think of that, Homer? And on the website GreekGodsAndGoddesses.net, they say that Hesiod, who lived sometime between 750 and 650 BC, described Elysium as a place, quote, untouched by sorrow. And Homer said that there was no bad weather in Elysium.
Well, that is true out here.
I know.
That part's true.
And GreekGodsAndGoddesses.net also says that the Elysian fields were, quote, typically described as a beautiful place of luscious meadows, flowing streams, and abundant vegetation. Wine was readily available, and the residents of Elysium spent their time making music, singing, and participating in sports.
Look, if wine is readily available, you've already got a problem. Because anybody who's ever gotten fucked up on an afternoon drunk with wine, it's trouble. That's trouble.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There used to be a bar during my drinking days. There was a bar that opened at 11 a.m. and served wine, red wine. And I'd go down there all sophisticated, like I'm having a red wine at brunch. By 2 a.m, I'm ready to hold up a liquor store or something.
Come out there with your lips or your mouth is red, your tongue is red, all sophisticated. What started out? No meal for me. No appetizer.
No, thank you. I'm just reading my book.
The craft of red wine, table wine. Please.
Thank you. Thank you.
But this kind of, I mean, the way they make it sound, it's almost like a cruise. You know what I mean? Elysium's kind of like a cruise.
That's true.
It's always party and music, and it never stops.
That's true. That's like the Kid Rock cruise.
That was the Elysium of the Greeks. And for the Romans, their idealized past was basically the same as the Greeks. Although they had a myth about an original golden age called Arcadia, is what the Romans would.
Well, that's a town, a suburb out here.
I don't live in
there, like a mall. And people drive out there to buy cars. There's a lot of
really Arcadia.
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
All right, that's the Roman ideal, the Roman utopia. And for the medieval Christians, Claeys said, their idealized past was found in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, it always goes back to the Garden of Eden.
But pre-Apple, though, right?
Right.
So you got to be stupid. Yeah. And that is the key to everything. Anytime I get to world peace or personal peace or, it always comes back to a lobotomy. You basically got to be stupid to be happy. That's truly happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The dumber you are, the easier it is.
That's true. A couple things that, first of all, you never see that. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Maybe he would have been happy. Maybe McMurphy would have been happy.
Absolutely. He wouldn't have known what he could have been.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing, you made me think of like post-Apple, like in the Garden of Eden, after the apple, was eaten and they were thrown out. What happened to the garden?
Oh yeah, it just exploded. God just blew it up.
No, I was thinking it was like an abandoned mall somewhere or something. Just like nobody
just
lives
turned
in
it into
anymore.
A strip mall. He's like, "Fuck me, fuck you."
All right. So Claeys says that for most of these concepts of utopia, people will find, quote, in the past, a period in which our needs were in harmony with nature, our population not overly burdensome, and our consumption balanced with our production. So there's a harmony in there. And he says, in this golden age, utopia is imagined to be an age of purity, harmony, and virtue.
Yeah. Boring.
Well, I think it doesn't really have much correlation with the real world.
No,
you know what I mean?
It's a dream world. It's a dreamland. It's the Wizard of Oz. Well, even the Wizard of Oz has the witch and stuff.
Yeah.
But a place without conflict, oh my God. I had a little bit of that when I was in Stockholm, or not in Stockholm, when I was at Zurich. Very clean. Everything clean.
Right.
And the good thing about Oslo is that it's very nice. I mean, it's all super safe. You could, walk around just with your money scotch taped to you, and, but Oslo had a little bit of graffiti and every now and then a cigarette butt. And once I saw a homeless person and I smelled a little bit of urine, and that made me happier. Just Vienna's like that too. It's so clean. You're just kind of like, what is this? What is it?
I wonder, that's what, when they do the, this movement to create like, I don't know if Disneyland does it, but definitely these planned communities, which are based on like an old, from like the 40s or something, from a musical set.
Yes. Right.
And I'm the same way. I like the grit. I like the conflict in society.
Yeah, because I'm a people watcher. And I love all of that. Like my favorite place, I think I've said it on our show. My favorite place in the world to people watch is the Las Vegas airport. That is number one. Yeah, that's number one.
I think our the next episode we're doing, just to give a little shout out for the
foreshadow.
Is on gambling. On gambling.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I cannot wait.
So I
bet it's going to be a great show.
Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. But anyway, Claeys says that this concept of utopia functions to reinforce our sense of the communal bond and offer hope in an uncertain world. And I think that's important because it's like that uncertainty. We don't like the uncertainty.
Right.
So, and so the idea is that somehow humans have screwed up what was once very certain for us, very safe.
Right.
And we're trying to get that back.
Right. Just make it great again. Get back there and yeah.
And it's it reminded me in a sense too of like the guys after they get divorced, they call up their old high school girlfriend, try to get back together.
Yes.
Of like this thing that was the perfect, try, and it very rarely works out. Very rarely works
but there's a lot of it because you can find them so quick on Facebook.
Yeah. But I've known a few people that have done that. And, again, trying to get back to this idealized golden age, I guess.
Right.
And in ancient Greece, the golden age was supposed to have existed 1,000 years before the Trojan War.
Okay. When was the Trojan War?
I think like 700.
Oh, 700 BC.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I think it's kind of, we don't really know, I don't think.
Right. Because it's a myth. Was it real or was it not? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And in his poem, Works and Days, Hesiod says, in the beginning, a golden generation of shining-faced humans was made by the immortals who abide in Olympian homes.
Whoa.
So this is going back to the golden age.
There's an area in LA, fenced-off area called Mount Olympus.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Brad Pitt used to have a place there. Who else? Oh, Angelina Jolie. They had a place there. It was Brad's place, and she moved in, and then they broke up, and now nobody has it.
Really? So that's where all the shining-faced golden people live, I guess is what you're saying.
I don't know. I was there for a friend of mine lived in there, and we went there for Halloween, and the kids trick-or-treated. So it was super safe. It was weird. It was just weird.
Yeah. Hesiod says that the golden generation, quote, lived like gods without anxieties, without labor and woe, nor did wretched old age weigh upon them. So that sounds pretty nice. Like it was in that time before anxieties.
Yeah. So. Boring, but nice. It's like I have this fantasy that I'm going to get a lake house, someday and retire on the lake house. I think I'd want to kill myself after like a week.
It's just more problems. It's twice as many problems to take care of.
Boat. Oh God, boats. All my friends who have boats, they just want to kill themselves.
Yeah.
I got to get the boat out of the dock because it's going to free, it's boat. God. My brother wanted to buy a boat and I was like, do not do it.
Yeah.
Go rent a boat, dude. Go rent one.
I heard that the same, every once in a while we go through the period where we want the fantasy of having a camper, an RV.
You're right. Same thing.
And it's always, the people we talk to are like, it's always something going wrong with it.
Don't do it. You got to pump the sewage out. You got to pump the water in. The shower's always broken. You got to tow that thing around, you know?
It's always the air conditioner, which is what you want, never works.
Yeah. Go, just stay home. Just stay home and watch it on TV.
So coming back, so for the Greeks, the Golden Age was 1,000 years before the Trojan War. And that's a little bit farther back than like the Make America Great movement. No.
Right. Yes. Right. This is the ultimate. Let's get back to that.
Right. The Make America Great, it's a very particular between like the end of World War II and the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement.
Right.
So, there's like 15 years in there. We're not talking about 1,000 years ago.
Right.
But it is interesting that the Make America Great movement also they use a lot of the Golden Age symbolism or the words golden age, or that we're getting ready to begin a golden age, or we're going back to a golden age.
Right.
Which is utopian language, I guess you could say.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And according to Hesiod, for the Greeks, then a second generation was created by the gods, a generation that was much worse than the golden generation. And this was the silver generation.
Well, what the hell did they do that for?
I don't know.
Why would you do one? Let's create another generation of humans that are not as good. Like whose idea was that?
Right.
I
That's
don't
what
care.
everybody who writes about Hesiod's his works and days poem is like, they don't know why they created the second inexplicably created the second generation.
I think I know.
Why is that?
Because you need problems to be interested. It all goes back to the Matrix. You know, in that movie, they created a perfect utopian Matrix.
Yeah.
Early and they realized no, it didn't work. People wouldn't participate. They needed to have problems. Yeah, that's in the movie. I like that.
That's fine. I didn't know that. I haven't watched. I watched the first one. I never saw the other ones.
You're not missing much. I don't know. They were interesting.
Hesiod said interestingly, he says that in the silver generation, boys were raised by their mothers for 100 years.
Whoa, God.
Ugh.
Ugh. I mean, I love my mom, but 100 years?
Yeah,
it already felt like 100 years before I could get out of there.
Imagine what 100 years felt like. It did feel like 1,000 years.
Or even worse, me having to raise my kids for 100 years. I'd want to kill myself. My God, it already feels like 1,000. But they're doing great. They're such great kids, my kids.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
Is your daughter back from college yet? Or is it?
No. And I don't even think she's coming.
Really?
Like she's making plans to go with her boyfriend to Europe, and she's like, Dad, I might be back in LA in June. I'm like, well, let me know.
Yeah.
Put me on your Google calendar.
Harry Chapin, just under the Harry Chapin song, Cat's Cradle.
No, I should. She doesn't care. And guess what? I don't want her to care. I raised her to want to go out into the world, man. Go do it.
That's the way to do it. Get away. You raise them to want to get away.
Yeah, get out there. Enjoy it all. It happens fast.
Call me when you get arrested.
That's exactly. And I'll bail you out.
You're a cool dad, man. You're cool.
Well, I've been in jail, so,
So then once they finally left home, apparently, the silver generation of the Greeks, at that point, they didn't care about the gods. They didn't make offerings to the gods.
Well, yeah, so then the silvers.
The gods got mad, and then they created the bronze generation. Okay, and the bronze generation, people's minds were set on the woeful deeds of Ares and on acts of hubris, and their hard dispositioned hearts were made of rock.
That's who we are. Is that us?
No.
That sounds like us. We're one more?
We're one more down. We're the Iron generation.
Oh, God.
And Hesiod said that the Iron generation will have no day or night free from toil and suffering.
Oh, that is us. Yeah.
And Claeys says that the Aryan generation is marked by warfare, greed, a breakdown in parental respect, and the spreading of envy and hatred. The gods intervene constantly to punish wickedness, and the pitting of good against evil comes to define human behavior.
Boy, they're big on the parents, respecting the parents. Why are they so big on that? Why is that so important?
I don't know. The ancient Romans used to commemorate the lost golden age by celebrating the Feast of Saturnalia each year from December 17th to December 23rd.
And you got it on, right? Wasn't that like a big fucking pagan party?
Yeah. Claeys says that, and the whole idea was supposed to go back to that idealized golden age 1,000 years before.
Yeah, you get wasted enough, you think you're there.
Right. Well, Claeys says that during Saturnalia, quote, Slaves were permitted to dine with and speak freely to their masters, sometimes even ordering them to perform demeaning acts. Feasting, merrymaking, and a moratorium on harsh punishments took place.
Oh, God, yeah. I've been at parties like that.
I always wonder, this is like when your boss says, I just want to be one of the crew, you know what I mean? And so you finally open up.
Yeah, tell me what you really think.
You do, it's like, you're fired. Get out of here.
Yeah. People don't want to hear the truth. Don't do it.
Yeah, we had in my work, the big boss one time used to always go around telling people, give me a call anytime something comes up, give me a call. And he would pass out his card. And one of the people in my office actually did call him one time. And within a day, they had already been, it had trickled back down through the chain, and they had been called into our local boss's office and said, like, don't ever do that again. But Claeys says that the Feast of Fools or Carnival in the Middle Ages was also an imitation of Saturnalia and celebrated the theme of the world turned upside down.
So that's a party.
And then in 1516, we get to the book that put the idea of Utopia on the map. It was, of course, Thomas More's book, Utopia.
Yes.
And Thomas More was a theologian. He was a lawyer, philosopher, statesman.
Amazing, his stuff.
Right. And he was ultimately executed by Henry VIII in 1535 for treason after More refused to recognize Henry VIII as the head of the Church of England. So he refused to go.
Bad move, Thomas.
He held up to his ethics, his morals and ethics, and it got him killed.
Yes. That's why I don't have any.
It's a safe way to go.
Stand for anything.
Thomas More was made a saint in 1935. And then in 2000, interestingly, Pope John Paul II designated Thomas More as the patron saint of politicians and statesmen.
Oh. Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah.
What a boring job that is. Wait. I stand up to the king and you make me the patron saint of politics. I have to be around these guys?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in 1516, More wrote the book Utopia.
Yeah.
And Claeys says that the name Utopia is actually a play on the ancient Greek words Utopia, Eutopia, meaning a good place, and Utopia, Utopia, meaning no place.
Oh, yes. Wasn't there a famous book written about Utopia in the 1800s called Nowhere spelled backwards? Erewhon is
was it?
Is that based on that? Yeah, it's some book anyway.
Isn't Erewhon's the grocery store now?
Yes. They stole that name from a utopian book. Here, I'll try to find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But for those who spoke ancient Greek back in the 1500s, you would have seen the name Utopia and known that was a play on words.
Oh,
for example.
I like that.
And to hammer home even more, the main character's name is Raphael Hythlodius, or Hythlode, which in Greek means a recounter of nonsense, a bullshitter.
Yes, so, that's you and me.
I know.
God, I love nonsense. Don't you?
I do love nonsense.
I just
absurdity.
love it.
I love absurdity. And the book is essentially a traveler's tale in that it's a conversation between Thomas More, his friend Peter Gillis, and Raphael Hythlodius. And Hythlodius has just come back from a voyage, and he's talking about what he saw on his voyage.
Okay.
And he says that he just spent 5 years on an island called Utopia. Okay. And Claeys says that according to Hythlodius, utopian society is well ordered. The regime's central principle is to place life before work and to ensure that as much time as possible should be withdrawn from the service of the body and devoted to the freedom and culture of the mind.
Oh, boy, that's boring. So we all got to sit around and think. Ugh.
Apparently, the actual real life situation that this book came out in was when that the royals in England had displaced thousands of peasants from small farms in order to make way for large-scale sheep farming. And
Oh,
Claeys says that the result was increasing unemployment and rising food prices.
okay. Yeah, that'll do
So
it.
that's when Moore came out with this idea of what utopian society was, or this book about what utopia was based within this context of a lot of unemployment, where royal people were punishing peasants for losing their, for not working when actually all of their farms have been taken away.
He's already stirring up trouble.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And Hythlodaeus in the book says that the working day in Utopia is 6 hours long and leisure is plentiful.
Okay, 6 hours. Can't we get it down? I feel like do we really need 6?
Yeah. And there was also equality of distribution ensures that everyone receives plentiful supplies.
Okay, that's where the problem starts, right there.
Yeah, you can see he's kind of needling, he's needling the royals, trying to make them act better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But he says also, in Utopia, Hythlodaeus says that in Utopia, nobody sits around doing nothing. But there are people who go around making sure that everyone gets on with their jobs.
Okay, there we go. This is not sounding like Utopia to me. This is sounding like an Amazon distribution center. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like they say it's utopian, but there's still people who come around and just make sure you're still awake and that you're working.
Zap your shock collar.
Here's something. Hythlodaeus in the book says that in Utopia, women may marry at 18 and men at 22, and prospective marriage partners are allowed to view one another naked to inspect for abnormalities.
Ooh, inspect for abnormal. First of all, I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. I stick to the old thing. You marry somebody based on just what you see. And then just always make love in the dark.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
That's that's your own form of utopia, I guess. It's like, then you never know. You never know what you never know.
Again, it all comes back to lack of knowledge. The stupider you are, the happier you are.
Lovemaking is all 90% imagination anyway.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
But apparently that line about people being able to observe, and who knows, I think he was being satirical about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that caused a little stir at the time, a little
really, yeah,
before
abnormalities. I don't want anybody to see my goiter or whatever it is.
We get to look at each other naked before we get married.
What's your abnormality? What would be? What do you think would be? What do you got?
To see me naked, I think it's my birthmark of Ireland.
Oh, on your ass. I've seen that.
I'd probably be hanged as a witch or something. Burned as a witch.
I mean, that thing, you could chart a ship by that. The coastline is accurate. That is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a witch one time, like a Wiccan, look at it, and was quite moved by it.
I bet. You got a sweet ass too. Maybe it was the ass. Mine would probably be my elongated scrotum just over the years.
Maybe better to keep the lights out.
Nobody wants to see
that. And if they encounter it in corpus delicti or whatever they call, just make it say, "Oh, I don't know. That's just a cloth I use to clean my glasses."
It's a chamois.
It's a scrunchie. How'd that scrunchie get in here? Don't turn on the lights. I'll get rid of it. Let me put my pants on. I'll take it outside.
Sorry, I was wiping down the car.
Claeys, also commenting on the book, says, in Utopia, kings do not hoard gold, and there is a general ethos of equality.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you could see where Moore
Yeah.
was pushing the limits at the time.
I don't know. People don't like equality.
Yeah, yeah. And Moore says in the book, he says, no living creature is naturally greedy except from fear of want, or in the case of human beings, from vanity, the notion that you're better than people if you can display more superfluous property than they can.
Okay, but how do you make people believe that? Again, I think you're headed back to lobotomies and shock treatment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even it's funny because in the book he's speaking of from Hythlodaeus, which is Moore writing as Hythlodaeus in this
Right.
conversation,
Of course.
and then Moore is himself in the book says in the final lines of the book he says, "I cannot agree with everything that Raphael said, but I freely admit that there are many features of the Utopian Republic which I should like, though I hardly expect to see adopted in Europe." so again, you see, and then he says something like, quite apart from such things as their military tactics, religions, and forms of worship, there was the grand absurdity on which their whole society was based. Communism minus money.
That's right. That's right. And we know how that works out.
Right. So again, he's like giving us more in the book is like giving this ideal society, trying to get needle people that behave better. But he's also in the book as himself saying, like, chances are this is never going to happen.
Yeah, like that. Like that.
And then, even though the utopian culture is egalitarian, there's still a social hierarchy in the book. Yeah. And Claeys notes that many ancient and some later utopias, not to mention dystopias, have been hierarchical.
Oh, okay. What? But I thought we were all sharing everything.
Well, that's the whole thing. But Moore's book gave people a general framework for how to create a perfect society.
Okay.
Like it got people thinking about how to, like, if I were going to do this, how would I do it?
Okay.
And then moving on, John, what happens when our utopia doesn't quite work out? What happens when things don't go so perfectly? We end up with dystopia.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And coming back to Claeys, and like I say, he's written a book on Utopia. He also wrote the book on Dystopia, Natural History. And he says dystopia is derived from two Greek words, dous, D-U-S, and topos, meaning a diseased, bad, faulty, or unfavorable place.
Okay. Okay. That's us.
Yeah, and the adjective dystopian, he says, implies fearful futures where chaos and ruin prevail.
Yes, but is that a bad thing, chaos?
I guess it's when it goes to an extent. Like, I think a little bit of it would be okay.
When it threatens your life, it's a bad thing for you.
Right. And he says that both utopias and dystopias normally, though not universally, exhibit a collectivist ethos. People sacrifice individual interests to the common good.
Okay. Well, wait. That's part of dystopia?
That's part of dystopia, too. So if you think about, usually when people think about modern dystopias, we probably think about like Stalinist Russia.
Right.
Or the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Where again, it's everything was, it's the collectivist. It's the compulsory solidarity is what Claeys refers to.
Yes.
And then Claeys, he lists 5 models that are pertinent to the modern collectivist political dystopias.
Okay.
And the first one, he says, are highly militarized or war-centered societies.
Okay.
Like ancient Sparta.
Mm-hmm.
The second is the regards slavery. It involves slavery in a dystopia.
Yeah. Okay.
Then there's political despotisms, which are governed by fear or terror.
Right.
The fourth aspect of a modern dystopia says involves prisons.
Yeah,
for example, you torture, forced labor, and a death camp, for example, to get people to, go along with your idea of the idealized society.
Yes.
And then the fifth is a rigid ostracism of diseased populations from healthy populations. So this
Mm.
idea of purity, coming back to
Yes.
purity, we're going to
Yeah.
impose purity on a society in
Yes.
this dystopia.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're the Nazis and the Jews and the other.
Right, exactly. And in Tyson Gaskill, who was he was a curator of an exhibit on utopias at the USC in 2016, he made the comment that one man's utopia is another man's dystopia.
Somebody's got to pay the piper.
Right.
Yeah, I like that. That's true. There's no there.
Right.
Yeah. We just got to make the best of it. Guess what? It's all about compromise. You do the best. You push this, pull that, It's never perfect. You paddle on one side of the canoe, then you paddle on the other side of the canoe. And that's the best it is.
I think that is the best. Yeah. It's like you're never, like we were saying, you're never going to get people completely happy about something. Right. They don't do it. They won't do it. They love to complain. No matter what. You can try to force them, and they won't do it. And probably the most famous example of dystopia we have in modern literature is George Orwell's 1984.
Yeah.
The book.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Orwell wrote the book in 1949. It tells the story of Winston Smith, who is he's an employee at the Ministry of Truth in the authoritarian and totalitarian country of Oceania. And the book was supposed to be a cautionary tale about what could happen when a social utopia goes too far and ends up as a dystopia.
Yeah.
And, I think we've talked about it before. I think there's certain books that you need to read at different stages throughout your life.
Yeah.
And I remember reading 1984 and Animal Farm in high school.
Right.
And it was a different experience now.
Oh, you just reread 1984
for this episode.
Oh,
I had to go in
you're
and look
so
at it.
Amazing. So, what did you think?
Well, before it always seemed like, as a kid in the 80s in high school, it seemed like science fiction. Like this would never happen. This would never happen.
Right.
And then now, of course, it seems like it's current events coming out.
Yeah.
But also I was just it didn't really hit me as much in the 80s of the loss of individuality in 1984 in Oceania.
Right. Well, because you were at an age where you don't want to be too much of an individual. It's about being in cliques and groups.
Yeah.
And boy, were you. I watched you. You wore Izods. You were at preppy prep, trying to fit in, looking down your nose at people like me from the wrong side of the tracks.
I know. How did we ever end up together? I didn't talk to you for like the first 4 years I knew you. Purposely tried to ignore you.
Well, it's when they turned on you, just like in 1984. It happens.
But there's a hierarchy. I guess what it was, it really, as a mature person reading it really hit me. his yearning for his own life, his own thoughts hit me a lot more now than it did, as a kid. Not even imagine. But now it's like, as an individual freedom means so much more to me now, I guess, or artistic freedom means so much more to me.
Yeah.
But 1984 gave us some of the images that we always associate with dystopias now. For example, there's the hierarchy. There's members of the inner party, the outer party, and the proles, who are the workers.
Right.
And then in the book and the movie, you also had the party is constantly piping information to people through their telescreens. Remember that?
Right.
You're watching them and sending them stuff. Of course, you have Big Brother, the image of Big Brother, who's always watching you, who's supposed to be the leader.
You remember that first Macintosh commercial? The first Apple computer commercial where it was it was released in 1984. And it was very much like smashing Big Brother. There was like a big face, and then people used hammers to smash it, and that's what the computer was going to do. Little did we know
It didn't last long.
it was the ultimate keeper of the
Yeah.
truth, or confusion of the truth.
It came back around.
It sure did.
And in the book, the government of Oceania is always reinforcing the message that war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. Those are like their three principles. And then also, what was interesting is in the book, Winston Smith, his job is he's part of the team that always rewrites history.
Yeah.
So that the government is always correct. They're never wrong.
Yeah.
They just keep rewriting what happened to suit the current situation, so it looks like they knew what was going to happen all along.
Which is what we do.
Yeah.
Everybody does. Norway, they're writing about the during World War II, the faction of Norwegians that fought the Nazis, the underground, and they don't learn the Jews in Norway who were sent to camps.
Right.
So and that's true with us and everywhere. Yeah, it's sometimes easier to see when you're outside it.
Yeah. But if you, I think it's constantly rewriting. I just saw an article about Leni Riefenstahl, who was the Nazi filmmaker, remember, and how she had done all the quintessential propaganda films for the Nazis, like Triumph of the Will and stuff.
Yes.
And then throughout her life, it's what the article was saying. There's a new documentary coming out about her. She had curated all of that out of her own story to where, she always maintained, I was just a filmmaker. I was just into the artistic part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like she had left out all of the part where it's like you were making movies for the Nazis. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then, the big thing in the book is they're worried about the thought police. Remember, and when the thought police want to make certain that you're thinking correctly, and if not, then you get taken to room 101.
Oh boy,
which is the worst thing you could possibly imagine.
Oh, the rats.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So that the book itself, like I say, I encourage you, if you haven't read it in a while, I encourage you to go back in and check in with it, because it was a whole different experience to me. And I'd say the same thing with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think we've chatted about that.
Yeah.
That when I reread that, I was like, totally different. Totally different.
Yeah, Murphy's kind of a jerk. Like,
yeah, he should not be out there running around.
Yeah. All right, John. So let's just now take a look at some of the attempts that people have ddone to try to make their own utopias.
Let's do it
in real life.
Okay.
And so this is going to be physical attempts at physical utopias or real paradise on Earth.
Okay.
And there's been a lot of them. And in 1838, for example, Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote to his friend, the philosopher Thomas Carlyle, that, quote, not a reading man but has a draft of a new community in his waistcoat pocket. One man renounces the use of animal food, and another of coin, and another of domestic hired service, and another of the state.
Yeah.
So he was making a joke that everybody in the 1830s had an idea
their
for
version of it, and you can't agree on it. Nobody. That's the problem.
Right.
You can't agree on it.
And Tyson Gaskill says that the reason most of these experiments failed was that it often comes down to human foibles. There's petty bickering. People don't have fleshed out ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no follow through. There's a whole host of reasons why these things fail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So starting out as the New World, for example, in North America for the Europeans was considered like, it was supposed to be like the new land.
Yes.
From the Bible.
A fresh start.
Right.
Pilgrims were going to start their utopia.
Right. And we talked about in our Thanksgiving episode how they were trying to get away from, they wanted the freedom to be able to tell other people how to live their lives.
Right.
So, but you also had the Rappites, Rippites, who, according to Claeys, were Lutheran separatists led by
Ooh.
George Rapp, who lived from 1757 to 1847. And the Rappites were Christians who shared all their goods in common. And
Oh, communists.
yeah, they were Christian communists, and they also practiced celibacy.
Oh man, that's not
Yeah.
a utopia.
Yeah, if you don't have any money, you got to have something that's enjoyable.
Don't take away the screwing.
Yeah, but the Rappites came to America from Germany in 1803, and according to the National Park Association, they started a community called Harmony in Pennsylvania. And then once they got that one up and running, they sold that one to a group of Mennonites.
Oh.
And then the Rappites started a community called New Harmony in Indiana. And once that was up and running, they sold that one to the socialist Robert Owens for his socialist commune. So the Rappites were just going around.
Yeah, they were just starting up communes and then moving on. Where did they end up after that? Where'd they go after that?
Well, they went back to Pennsylvania and they started another commune called Economy, which dissolved in 1905. And the Park Service says that the reason this one failed was, quote, due to the practice of celibacy and several schisms.
Yeah.
So
you're going to have some problems. You're going to run into some problems with that celibacy stuff.
Yeah, I think that might cut. Not to mention you're not producing any new members.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're burning the candle at both ends. I mean, yeah.
And then not to just making people angry. Like if you're already
miserable,
unhappy,
just miserable. Did they get to masturbate? I hope they got to masturbate.
I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah. Somebody turn you in, I bet. You're not churning butter.
Whatever. God. Some narc.
Yeah. Then there was the Oneida Colony, which was founded by John Humphreys Noyes, Noyes, a theologian in New York. And the Park Service says that Noyes and his followers became known as perfectionists. And they practiced complex marriage, meaning that they were considered themselves married to the group and not a single partner.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I get it. Why are they all this from the Park Service? Why does the Park Service know all this stuff?
Well, the Park Service, maybe they'll scrub their website, but right now the Park Service has a really good resources on utopian movements in the United States.
It's so interesting.
Because most of these are national parks now.
Wow, I see. Okay. Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So hopefully, like I say, a lot of this comes in, and they really kind of lay it out, like what the utopian movements were and which ones failed and why they failed. It was just really good to see it all the way about. And with the references, I have the reference to it. So if anybody wants to go online,
if you've never seen the references that Professor McCray lays out on our episodes, I highly recommend you check them out.
Yeah,
they are thorough.
The thing is, they call themselves the perfectionists. Yeah. And I think you're already setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah. You're never going to make that. There is no perfect.
I have a friend at work who always says that if the minimum wasn't good enough, it wouldn't be the minimum. So I think that's what you want to join a group, not perfect, but like the sufficientists or the mediocreists.
Yes, I like that. The just enoughs.
And Paul Kagan, in his book, New World Utopia, says that the Oneida community also instituted a practice of mutual criticism aimed at self-examination as a safeguard against the authoritarian impulses of any hierarchy.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
You guys start criticizing each other. Hey, I got something.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what's wrong with you?
My work tried to do that one time where people would just get up and say something about somebody else, and it does not go over well.
No.
It does not go over.
No, I always thought the worst party game in the world was somebody from the group goes and locks themselves away so that they can't hear, and then the rest of the group decides what they hate most about that person.
Oh, no.
And then that person comes back in and has to guess.
Oh,
So
no.
it's like, I'm argumentative. No, that's true, but that's not the thing we hate the most.
Oh, no. What? You played that game?
Never.
I was going to say, what is that, like an institutionalized therapy or something? What kind of game is that?
I had another bad game for parties where you sit in a circle and you whisper something you've never told anybody to the person to your left. And then after everybody's done that, you start the party and you see who kept the secret and who didn't.
That's what we'll play that at the Yeti Love convention.
All right, awesome.
And Rachel Savage, the journalist, says that the Oneida colony fell apart when Noyes tried to hand control of the colony over to his agnostic son.
Jesus.
And Noyes had to flee to Canada to avoid being charged with statutory rape.
Okay. Okay. That's the perfectionist movement? Yeah. Well, you missed the mark.
That's one of the foibles, I guess they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there was the Brook Farm, which was started in 1841 in Roxbury, Massachusetts by George Ripley with a group of transcendentalists and intellectuals.
Oh, boy.
That included Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and Henry David Thoreau.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And, the transcendental idea, Kagan says, was that man could master both his habits and his senses through the exertion of will by taking great nature as one's teacher.
Yeah.
So that's
I don't know. The will thing, self-will. Yeah. I don't believe it exists.
Yeah.
I just don't believe in that.
Yeah.
It never works out.
In our talking about with addiction, we've talked about willpower doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But what they did is these intellectuals felt that sharing the workload of the farm, Rachel Savage says, and living in harmony, they would be left with time to enjoy intellectual and cultural pursuits as they wished.
Boring. I mean, who is it? Thoreau?
Ralph Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and George Ripley were some of the people.
Bunch of blowhards. You know what I mean? I've read their stuff. I mean, they've got great ideas, but I can't imagine sitting around a campfire with them all night.
Well, what happened is with the farm, none of these eggheads were used to hard work. They were all like upper class intellectuals.
Yeah.
And so none of them would do any work.
So they just ran out of food and it stopped?
Yeah, like they didn't want to do it,
Yeah.
The people that were, you can imagine, like if you have a roommate that doesn't clean up and you're the one that is doing everything.
I've had them.
And so then Brook Farm was actually
Thoreau,
sold.
will you please bring you said you would bring the water in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working on my, essay on,
God damn it.
So Brook Farm, saying that there was a whole secondary market for Utopia. Once you started a Utopia, you could always unload it to somebody else.
Huh.
They sold Brook Farm to followers of the French socialist Charles Fourier.
Huh.
So then Fourier,
the socialists always come in there at the end.
They don't want to start from scratch. They want to I want that little fixer upper. When it comes to my
built
Utopia.
That fence around the lake. We'll take it.
And just before we end, John, I just want to talk quickly about everybody always thinks that they're like communists or like hippies or something to do with. There were also a lot of nationalistic and libertarian Utopia experiments.
Interesting.
And one of the most famous, for example, was there was Nueva Germania in 1887 to 1893 in Paraguay.
What?
And apparently Paraguay at that time had just been in a war with like three different countries, like Uruguay, Argentina, and Brazil. And most of the male population had died.
Wow.
So in the 1890s, Paraguay was giving away a lot of land to people to come and try to start these utopias in Paraguay to try to repopulate. Okay. And in Nueva Germania was an experiment started by Friedrich Nietzsche's sister, Elizabeth Forster Nietzsche, and her husband Bernard Forster, who were both anti-Semites.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So they were, in the article, Inside Paraguay's Failed Aryan Utopia, Diana Buds says that the Forsters said that Nueva Germania was going to be, quote, the rebirth of the human race.
Oh,
okay, so you can see where this is going.
So they were they experimenting with ideas that later led to the Nazis? Did the Nazis ever borrow from any of them?
I would say probably they did, because they were all into racial purity.
Right.
The Forsters. And so their idea was that in 1886, they went with 14 families. They left Germany for Paraguay.
Good
and in 1992, in the book Forgotten Fatherland, Ben McIntyre noted that the Forsters sold the idea to the colonists by saying that in Nueva Germania, Paraguayan servants were going to do the white man's bidding. So you see where this is going.
Jesus.
So, and then once they got there to Paraguay, of course, reality set in, and they were attacked by mosquitoes. They couldn't farm the land. You know, they were German farmers. They weren't used to being out there in the jungle.
Yeah.
And by 1888, 1/4 of the colonists had gone back to Germany.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fuck this.
Right. And in 1889, Bernard Forster, the founder of the colony, committed suicide.
Good.
And in 1893, Nietzsche's sister then gave up on it and went back with the excuse that she had to go back to Europe to take care of Friedrich Nietzsche after his breakdown.
Oh, can you imagine how annoying Nietzsche's sister would be? Oh God, here she comes.
Let's hope she doesn't. 10-1, she brings up Friedrich Nietzsche.
Yeah. Friedrich and I, when we were young.
But then after they left, to keep the colony going, the remaining colonists had to then intermarry with the local Paraguayan population.
Wow.
So their whole thing.
That's a big turnaround from purity to the melting pot. That's pretty great. That's pretty great.
Another attempted colony in Paraguay at the time was in the 1890s, was New Australia. Oh. So you always think about people going to Australia that started anew. These were Australians that were unhappy with Australia and went to Paraguay to start anew.
Wow.
And in a great article in 2022 for the Australian Broadcasting Company, Jennifer Douglas wrote that 500 Australians were led by William Lane, a socialist, and they were leaving Australia in the wake of the sheep shearer strikes of the 1890s. And Lane promised a fair deal for all once they got to Paraguay. But again, things quickly fell apart once Lane tried to implement strict rules against alcohol and fraternizing with the local women.
Oh, Jesus.
And Arthur Edwards, an Australian researcher, had a great quote. He said, quote, "It was bound to fail. You can't convert a group of rowdy sheep shearers into Christian teetotalers. It goes against the Aussie spirit."
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You want to live a little bit after you've been shearing sheep all day.
I know, like once you get over there, it's like, oh, by the way, nobody's going to drink, and you can't go fraternize.
Yeah, it's like what? What?
Only 10% of the population are male. You know what I mean? It's like
it's a free for all.
Yeah. And then Lane he gave up on socialism and ended up working for a far-right newspaper in New Zealand.
Wow. Boy, did he shift over. It's not working here. I'll go to the other side.
And finally, in a 2023 article in Forbes magazine, Jim Dobson talked about micronations. And this is where people try to find a little land somewhere in the world. They call it seasteading instead of homesteading. We try to find like a shoal, or try to find like a reef or something that's beyond any legal boundary, and then you try to start your own country.
Wow. Okay.
So in 1968, there was a guy named Werner Stiefel who started Operation Atlantis, and that was supposed to be a libertarian utopia.
Huh.
And what Stiefel, Operation Atlantis actually started in a motel in upstate New York. And then they built a boat and sailed it down the Hudson River and onto the Bahamas, where they were going to start their own libertarian utopia.
Oh my God! Wow.
Yeah, and the boat, first of all, it caught fire, and they repaired that. And then once they got to the Bahamas, the boat was destroyed in a hurricane.
And they were all killed?
Well, no, they survived. They got off.
But I see. Wow.
But,
wow.
And then just one more. There was a guy named Michael Oliver in 1972, also wanted to start a libertarian utopia. And what he did is he went over, he found the Minerva Reefs in the South Pacific, and he started the Republic of Minerva, which was going to be a libertarian financial center, or a tax shelter, basically.
Right.
And in 1972, the King of Tonga found out what was going on the reefs, and Tonga didn't have a large army, so he got a bunch of convicts out of his local prison or jail, and they all went over there and threw all the libertarian colonists off the Minerva Reefs.
Wow. Should have made a deal.
So it was fascinating, John, but I hope this has given you and me a few things to think about before we try to start our own utopia.
Let's not do it. Let's not start a cult.
It's not as easy as it seems.
No, it never goes well in the end, especially for the people who start it.
Yeah.
Things turn on you. Yeah.
So I'll try to post some more examples of utopias on our Facebook.
Yes, and we'll of course we'll list all of your references here if people want to dig in deeper.
Right, right.
Well, this is human number 2 signing off.
And this is human number 1. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you found this podcast interesting, please tell a friend about it, and be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube if you want to watch it. If you want to see what we look like.
We're handsome. You're going to be surprised.
Keep the lights out. Keep the lights out when you do it.
Keep the lights out, yeah. Even when watching us.
And be sure to check out Watson and Company Socks and Puppies Not Piranhas on Etsy, and the Two Humans Cave Shop on it's on what's it?
Cafe Press?
Cafe Press. Press, yes.
Yes, good stuff there.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We love you guys. We don't know what Utopia is going to look like, but let's just keep trying. Keep trying to make this better.
But enjoy the mess. Enjoy the mess.
Enjoy the mess.
Bye.
All right, guys. Love you. See you, John. Love you. Welcome
Love
back.
you. Okay, bye.